Hello, Albert.
Hi,
So,
Aaron.
how are you today?
I'm doing fine. I doubt I'm having any troubles right now. And I'd like to ask you the same thing. How are you today?
Let me tell you, today was a wild journey because actually, in the morning I attended a fiesta in Las Piñas City, and we stayed there from the morning until nighttime. And then when we arrived here, the thing here is that I have a toothache that's been worrying me for this whole week, and I'm relying on the medicine prescribed by the doctor, a form of painkiller. And I took it and was expecting the effects of the painkiller to hit before the recording, and I was panicking. I was like, "Oh my gosh, my teeth still hurt." I was like, "Oh no, like will I make it for the episode?" And
Oh,
the problem here
darn.
is that when my teeth hurts, my head also hurts. And thank God, the moment like I entered here, the pain subsided and the timing was immaculate.
Oh,
Other than like
gosh.
it was wild. I thought I wasn't able gonna like I thought I'm not gonna be able to come right now.
Well, it's a good thing that you're able to come right now because we do have a special episode for today. And the
Yeah.
reason why is because I guess this is a topic familiar to everyone here, not only within us, but also with the Animotion community because this is about storyboarding. And with that in mind, actually, we did have a storyboard webinar before, and it also comes off as a big time webinar since we do have big time guests there too. Sir Ian Abando and of course Sir Louis Del Carmen. If you guys remember the Framey Bunch, we do hope that you still remember it. But this time we're gonna ask more we're gonna ask more on how these experiences of being a storyboard artist compel a current storyboard artist right now. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
not only storyboarding, I guess on the writing aspect too. So both
Yep.
visual and non-visual, which is gonna be
Yep.
like a very interesting thing to like get to know of.
Yep. So there are really a lot of good things that comes to storytelling, and this time we're also gonna have a good time learning what we can because not only is our so I guess we're gonna start off with the introductions now, right? Suppose,
Yeah,
but
and
let's start off with the student. I want to know who this student is. Who is this curious mind that is ready to take on and engage with our professional guest today, Aaron? Who is it?
well, as everyone is very well acquainted on how these episodes are formulated, every episode you'll be inviting our members to join us in this podcast and be able to interact with everyone here. So let's welcome another person from our org, Animotion, previous IAC student, but now Benillion student, an aspiring animator with an ever-changing art style, non-stop travel na malamis worldwide, the beauty pero attitude na parang beast, Miss Xela Magpantay.
Hi,
Grabe ah.
Hello.
Sela.
Hi, I'm Sela Lorraine Magpantay. You can call me Sela. Fun fact about my name is actually from my father. His name is Alex. And then he interchanged it to be Sela. Yay!
Oh,
Wow, first day of class. Introduce yourself.
that's so.
um, yeah, I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to be here as a guest since I'm really storyboarding and writing is um, a part of the animation pipeline I'm really interested in, especially
Really?
since I'm writing my thesis currently. So yeah, yun
Oh,
lang.
happy, but
Um,
why do you sound not? Why do you sound
happy,
distressed?
happy, but
Nawala ng malay.
I'm um I'm kinakabahan,
Oh,
nervous.
In
don't.
English, there, yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
you don't have to be nervous too,
yeah,
Sela. It's all
yun.
right. But I suppose you don't have to be nervous because we do have, of course, a very welcoming guest as well. And this time I'll be introducing the professional guest. So our professional guest right now is, of course, a working veteran under the Disney Television Animation Studios, and he has worked on multiple projects. One of the most notable projects that he has made is, of course, being in Milan as a writer and being in Dinosaur as one of the animators. And not only that, he also has concurring Disney Junior series. He is also under the storyboarding department for a number of your favorite Disney Junior shows, including, of course, Elena of Avalor, Fancy Nancy, and the currently running Firebuds, which is, of course, certified by many publications as a Filipino pride show because the protagonist is a Filipino, Bobayani, and we are very proud of him, and we are proud, of course, with our guest today. Please welcome Sir Julius Agimatang, or Jules. Hi, Jules.
Hey, how's it
Oh.
going, guys? Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for that nice introduction. I have to make a correction though. Yeah, yes, I worked in Mulan, but I was a storyboard artist. Never a writer though. That it's funny because like when IMDb puts up stuff, and it's like, wow, I was a writer on Mulan. That's kind of cool, but I have to say that I wasn't. Who were actually hired to do that. But in movies though, sometimes we do have opportunities to do a little bit of like adding dialogue and stuff like that when it calls for the story, or if it's something that we could help with telling the story. But we do. I mean, like technically, it's with the storyboards, it is what it is. I mean, you have the term story in our job title, uh, but as far as like technical, writing is a separate sort of thing. And I don't know if you heard this, but we have actually a writer's strike here in the
Oh
United
yeah,
States.
I did
Yeah,
hear.
actually, we heard
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. But I'm not part of that. I'm not part of the Writers Guild. I'm part of the Animation Guild. We call ourselves TAG, which stands for the Animation Guild. Um, but uh, but yeah, that's it. Nice to be here.
Well, regarding on the IMDb, from a previous guest, they mentioned the fact that you guys have no control on your IMDb, which actually was a surprising thing for me, because here I
Oh
thought was
yeah.
like, oh, you guys are the one inputting things in IMDb, but it's actually no,
Yeah,
you guys are also surprised on the things written
yeah,
on IMDb.
yeah. I think there is a way to do it. But I don't know how to do it. I'm not that tech savvy.
Well, I guess adding on, is there anything you want to introduce yourself more to our listeners?
Yeah, I'm currently working on Firebuds. We've been on it. I've been on the show for at least almost 3.5 years now. We started right on COVID, right on the pandemic, which is crazy. So obviously, doing this kind of stuff, doing the Zoom things was what we were doing for most of the production. And now we're kind of back in the office part time, not all day, not every day, which is nice because now I get to meet some of the new, the people that in person, being in person is pretty cool. I just gotten so used to seeing people on Zoom, that when you see 'em, like
Oh,
you're
I
like,
see.
wow, you're really that short.
Yes, exactly. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
know that feeling that
I
some
got
people
that
look
a lot.
taller or
Oh,
smaller
sure.
in
Wow, you're really that, you're really that fat. um,
Yes, when they can't see your belly in the
right, I
call,
know
you look
exactly.
thinner.
Angle here, like on the camera.
There are plenty of
Yeah, yeah. I've been on the show for about 3.5 years, where we've just first season's already been out for a while. We are currently working on a second season, and it's been one of the highlights of my career, really, because I always considered Mulan my sort of my top, production. But that's the thing that was funny, because that was the first thing I worked on. So, imagine like that's your first production to be on. and being like, wow, I'm on top of the world, I'm working on one of the, a cool project, and you just hope that it's going to do well. And trust me, it was like when I jumped on it, I had no idea how the movie would do, Mulan. And so it wasn't until after, like, I mean, the first release of it was, I guess it was like it wasn't like Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin or those kind of movies where it got such a big reception. Mulan was sort of just there, right? And I think through time it really, affected a lot of people, especially kind of like the Asian community, which I was really proud to be a part of, because it was, I don't know, I feel like it was the first real sort of Asian story that we did, and to be a part of that was really it's just an honor. Um, but yeah, I've been in the business for about, gosh, over 30 years now, I think. And well, almost 30 years. 30 years. See, this time just messes up with the
Time is a
Just
construct.
passes,
it is.
just
It
passes
is.
through,
Yeah.
especially when we're doing a lot of things. But yeah, you did have a lot of achievements, and I'd say that getting into Mulan as your first job is no easy feat, I feel.
Like,
Because considering that it's also a part of the highly rated Disney Renaissance film, it
yes,
just gives you
exactly.
this, I guess it makes you tense, maybe. What that maybe how come I got into this, and then the fact that I got into this very highly rated film, oh shoot, I can't believe it, and this was my first job. I suppose you weren't tense when you had it, I suppose you weren't tense at all when you got that as your first job, or
Intense.
maybe there were other jobs that got you much more tense than Mulan itself.
Well, it was, I mean, obviously it was nerve-wracking to be, working with the best, and to be part of that Disney animation um, company, because there are different companies, there are different divisions. This was the movies, and I always feel like even up to now, like all the Disney movies, that's the cream of the crop. Those are supposed to be, the best artists. Um, so to be part of that was really great. I'm saying I'm not knocking TV at all. I mean, we have some super talented TV people as well. It's just a different beast. Same sort of process. I mean, we do boards, we do animation, we do all that stuff. Same sort of job descriptions, um, but the actual, the time it takes these things. I mean, like it took about 3 years for Firebuds to finally come out. But movies, man, they could take like 5 to 10 years sometimes, depending on the story, and sometimes they have to, like, start all over, and they have to go back to the drawing board and fix these stories, like for instance, like Frozen. For Frozen's a perfect example, because that was like originally called Snow Queen, and then they had to sort of stop production, and then they started all over again. I think the success of Tangled, really, gave faith that they could do this thing. And so, when they went back and they changed the title, to Frozen, because you had Tangled, it's more of a marketing kind of thing. It's interesting. It's interesting how they, these things happen. Same thing with Mulan, because Mulan was actually called originally, and this is going to sound shocking, but it was originally called China Doll.
Oh
Oh,
gosh,
That was like, I know, isn't that
that
crazy?
sounds
that
that
gave
sounds
me a
controversial.
very
Yes, it
Yeah,
is a
gave me a
controversial
very
title.
concerned reaction.
it was just, just not in naivety on their part, but of course they changed it. It was called The Legend of Fa Mulan. That was the original. Then that was like the next title, long title,
Mm.
Legend of Fa Mulan. And then they changed it to Fa Mulan. And then they changed it to Mulan. So so it got smaller and smaller.
Well, to
So,
be fair, like since Mulan started as like this epic ballad in Chinese culture, having a long title like that fits with what the inspiration is, but for a movie, Mulan really rolls off the tongue really better. And regarding on that, like to be honest, I'm so starstruck with like knowing you as a guest. And I think like I speak for us three here about the fact that we love Mulan so bad. Especially like Sela. I remember like
Yeah,
when I
especially
was inviting Sela and I was like, oh, do you know our guest was part of Mulan? Oh, whoops. Like when I said, oh, our guest was a writer from Mulan, according to IMDb, and said, I was like, oh my gosh, and then we were both like going wild and very excited for this episode, right, Sela?
yeah,
Yeah, trust me, they
especially
gushed
since
in it.
yeah, like especially since when I watched it as a kid, it was my
Sure.
first time seeing a heroic woman who could fight and stuff, while also maintaining femininity in the end. It's just
Yeah.
yeah, it's really powerful for
No,
me.
that's great. I'm glad to hear that. I'm always proud of. I always love talking about the movie for sure. I mean, even though it was, I mean, this was back in 1995 when I started working on this thing. I was in the training program in animation, so um, after our training was done, they would put us onto productions, as an apprentice, and like the other ones were like Hercules and Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I think I'm missing another movie, and then the other one was, you know, was China Doll, you know. It was, I remember
Fine.
walking down the hallways and seeing sort of like the board with all the headshots. You see the actors who can do voices. I
Mm.
was like, Lea Salonga, she's gonna do a voice, because I kind of knew her. I mean, she wasn't like, I mean, she was big time. I mean, she was because of Miss Saigon, so
Yes.
I learned who
Yeah.
she was, and I thought, oh wow, that's cool. I'd love to be, a part of this production. And then finally, when they started putting us on the shows, it wasn't my choice. They put me on that thing, and I was there with another trainee, and we both like started working on Mulan, as sort of like trainees still as apprentices. But I got my foot in the door, and I was there. I was, and pitched the story, and it was like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah,
And
like
then
what a strong way to start.
yeah, it was cool. I mean, because I already knew, and I like Ming Na Wen was obviously the voice of Mulan, and I remember her from Joy Luck Club, and so I mean, just like you guys. I mean, I was really into the whole Asian thing. Filipinos hadn't really, hadn't made it quite yet, but of course you had Leia doing the voice, and I knew her, you know,
Yes.
doing the voice of like the singing voice of Jasmine. So
Yeah.
it really got me excited to know that she was going to be a part of this, movie. Which I had actually, and I had the fortunate, a chance of like meeting her in person one time at the studio. So,
Oh.
so that was really cool. Uh,
Regarding like Lea Salonga, let me tell you, reflection really became a part of my childhood because my mom always used that as like my lullaby when I sleep.
yeah,
And then I'll make a man out of you changed me so much.
Darn.
that's
Giving
awesome.
Getting Mulan songs to you as a lullaby is such a good thing. For me, Mulan songs were actually made as like a test for our music back then in grade school. Like
Wow.
back in our grade school, Leia Salonga was so glorified. Well, because she is an alumni there, thus most of the songs that were given to us are of course coming from her works. So we were always told to sing Reflection or maybe sing A Whole New World. But I guess yeah, she really was revered by then, and I guess we I guess all of us here would say we are proud of her giving giving Famulan that very beautiful singing voice too.
Exactly.
Oh, oh, can I segue for a bit? I actually
Sure.
have like, um, what's your since working in Mulan, what's your favorite shot that you storyboarded?
Oh
Like, is
Oh
yeah.
there a
gosh.
What was your
memorable
favorite?
storyboard?
Remember
What?
this, okay? So I was young and a trainee, so I didn't get all the big juicy scenes. Unfortunately, those are left to the people who know what they were doing. I was just kind of like start, I mean, my trainee who was with me, his name was Chris Williams. who ended up like winning an Academy Award for like Big Hero 6. I think even did he work on Moana? Yeah, Moana. But so he worked on all those movies. Eventually, he was a director. But we
Oh,
worked.
now no wonder he's familiar. Oh, hey, I
Yeah,
remember now.
yeah, great guy. So, just somebody I was fortunate to train with. But like we, both of us were just starting out like in the business, so it was kind of cool to be handed scenes. And I'll tell you, it's really tough. It's a tough thing because like feature movies require you to sort of be more creative, to come up with story ideas and stuff like that. And Chris just had the knack for it. He was just so good, And for me, I was still sort of learning the process, learning like how to board from the script and all that. But I feel like I managed to understand it. Now, as you're talking, like what scenes or what parts of the movie that that were my favorite. I mean, I really got to work on like different parts of almost not every scene, but like the ones like where I remember doing a shot where Mulan was watching her father do the sword thing, and she's hiding behind the wall, and her father falls to the ground, and and then she
Oh.
just gets really impacted by that, and really that's when she really has to make the decision, to take his place. So I got that part. There's the whole conscription notice part where when Chifu shows up with his with all the conscription notes and has to like call out all the men in the city, to
Oh, I do remember
draft
that.
all the kids. And so what's his name, Azu, Mulan's dad, sort of walks up there with this limp, and Mulan tries to stop him. And I remember working on that scene. That was kind of one of my favorite scenes. I had kind of like the dramatic parts. I had moments too where I threw in gags and stuff like that. I worked on the "I'll Make a Man Out of You" episode scene. Just parts of it. I didn't work on the whole thing, but coming up with gags and helping fix some story points too. That's a part that I worked on. And then just little bits in here, like some of the action stuff and the avalanche I worked on. Gosh, there's just so much. A lot of early stuff. A lot of the stuff in the beginning, I kind of was helped developing, the Mulan's introduction.
Mm.
But yeah, yeah.
Well,
Oh
regarding like
yeah,
as
I'd like to commend that actually. You did well in trying
true.
to give that dramatic edge for Mulan, especially trying to build up that conflict.
And
Wow.
like as
Now,
much as we wanna like make this, as much as we wanna like gush about Mulan, obviously we have more works. Like for example, Lion King, one and a half,
oh,
one of my
that one.
favorite. Like
Original, not
like
the first one, not Lion King, one.
it's
One and a half.
in my opinion, Lion King one and a half is better than Lion King one, and I'm gonna die on that hill. And then there's also like some
Man,
of my little sister's favorites, like Elena of Avalor, Shimmer, and Shine, the Pirate Fairy and Pixie Hollow games, like
good work on the Tinkerbell stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and G-Force. Oh my gosh, G-Force. I remember watching that movie,
Wow,
and
I
I was
have one person who watched it.
yeah,
Oh
like
yeah, G-Force. That
it's
was one
I
of my
love the
favorite
comedy of it and like the
superheroes.
whole cute hamsters thing being spies. Like they've been trained to be spies. I'm like, I loved it. When I was a kid, I was like, this is so cute. I love this.
Oh my God,
And
I'm
like,
glad. You're one of the first people I think who really likes that movie.
yes.
Fun production. I actually loved. That's one of my like sleeper kind of like
Yeah, that
productions
felt
I've
like a
been on because it
sleeper
was such a
movie.
small team, and plus it was also it was a live action movie. So it was my
Yeah.
first real live action movie, which and they hired us on it, and because they needed people who understood animation, and so with a lot of the guinea pigs, all the those characters, we our assignments was to board sequences that had those characters in it. We didn't have to board like the live action part. I think, but I think like almost like 90% of it is like with those characters. So um, that was a lot of fun. I actually like it was cool because like it was a Bruckheimer production, like Jerry Bruckheimer. He's just Mr. Hollywood, right? So um, that was just really fun to be a part of that team, and we only had like, I think there was just like 4 of us, 4 storyboard artists on that team, because again, it was just,
Oh,
it wasn't a fully animated movie, which you probably need a bigger team. But it's so funny, like we were working literally in a trailer, like I had
Oh.
a desk, in a trailer, and it wasn't some fancy office, even though Jerry Bruckheimer, but he had the cool office. But we were working in the back of this building in a small trailer, and the people I work with, the loveliest people. It was one of the best productions I've been on, which is fun. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
And
like I still remember the characters like Darwin, Blaster, Speckles,
I haven't heard those names in a long time.
Like I really am a fan. I'm the
now
one
I want to
person.
rewatch the whole thing again.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually have another question if you don't mind. Kasi collaborating with other artists is like one of the many needs to be, in an animation movie. Yes. So how do you like, is there, were there times where you had trouble in one aspect of the storyboard that you had to have help with other people, or like how do you get by with incorporating feedback or making revisions towards your storyboard again?
It's a good
Yeah.
question. Yeah, I mean, you're um like, say if you say you're struggling through your sequence or something, and or how can you how you work with people around you, other fellow board artists. Um, I don't know. I mean, I always like looking at other people's work, and I'm trying to understand what they do and stuff. I learn every time. Although, like lately, I haven't really been boarding because I've been directing on Firebuds. But I've spent most of my career doing storyboards. Um, it's, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. When you're taking a script, and you're basically visualizing, you know, what's going to be on a screen. Um, and if I ever have trouble, yeah, I'll talk to my sort of story supervisor and see if we could work out something. I think that was a lot, really early on in my career. You know, probably would add some more advice. But you know, I try to follow, like, some of my mentors, and their style, and the way they work. And I don't know. When I was on Elena Avalar, it was almost like automatic for me, just because I already understood how to, translate all the stuff, to boards. And now that we do these things, and we use and you guys probably do too, we use Storyboard Pro, as a software to do our boarding. Remember, back then it was all paper, so we used to do everything on paper. It was just like we pin them up on boards, and that's how we.
Like the ancient times. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ancient times.
I miss doing that. I mean, obviously we're wasting a lot of paper, but at the same time we were doing art. I felt like we were actually doing art, you know. And today it's been more digital, which is fine, but the process is much faster, and I have opportunities to actually feel like I can animate a little bit, which is kind of cool. But I think I've found sort of like my way of working on boards, with Storyboard Pro. It's been, it's got its good and its bad. Um, which is, like there's much more of a demand of trying to, you know, make your boards work, and convince, your boss that this is how it's going to work, because of timing. Like, we've almost become like editors now, because of the way we time stuff, but we cut. We never did that. That wasn't our job. Our job was to, compose shots, tell story through the boards. And yeah, there was maybe a little bit of sort of animation involved, because of movement and trying to make something dynamic. And most of us had that sort of, the talent to do it. and I studied at Cal Arts for I was there for 3 years and studying animation, so I had a little bit of that background. And then in my Disney, when I was in the internship at Disney, again, learned, I was doing a little bit of animation. And you kind of go in, when you're a student back then, and when you're a student, animation was the thing. Like, oh, that's what I'm going to do in my career is to animate. And then, like, all of a sudden, my focus kind of changed, and it's like, I learned this thing about storyboarding. That's what I want to do: storyboards. Let's do storyboards. Um, but now, like, fast forward, there's a lot of that blending of, like, doing boards and then also doing animation too, because that's what you can kind of do on Storyboard Pro. But I don't know if I answered your questions, Scylla. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I think you answered it, naman. Actually, I have another follow-up question, if you don't mind. Is it all right for the host?
Go, no
Oh,
problem, no
go,
Okay.
no
problem.
problem.
Yeah, I was,
If you want, you'll host.
no.
I'm actually curious on what our curious mind here has to say. I wonder what Sela has in store for
So
questions.
like, how do you approach translating a script into like a visual storyboard? And
Oh
if you could
yeah.
walk us through your creative process.
How did you get by that? I wonder.
Magic.
Oh,
Pure magic.
Yeah,
amazing.
Disney
I
magic.
wish I had that.
It's the
Like
Disney
a
magic. Trust
wand
the
and go
magic.
fling, and it just becomes,
Yeah,
and this little pixie dust that just no.
sure. Yeah, audition for Hogwarts. Get my magic wand.
Right. Yeah. It's not, obviously it's not easy, but I think a lot of it, and I'll share a little bit more about my background, and how I got into the business, or why I was interested in doing this work, is because of movies. Basically, I was a product of the '80s, so I watched a lot of Steven Spielberg movies, and I was just a pure love of the cinema, and having that all sort of already ingrained in my head, like these shots, these iconic movie scenes, like from Back to the Future, from Star Wars, from Indiana Jones, and the Goonies, all the stuff, there's all this, like, you know all that stuff really was just in my head. So I developed sort of a library of shots in my head, not that I knew I was going to do storyboard. It was just something that it's just pure love for. And so when it got into animation, like school and watching more and discovering even more, like animation creators, like Otomo, right? Like Akira, watching that in school and going like, oh my God, what is this stuff? This is amazing, um, the movie that really launched me, or the one that kind of sort of pushed me forward to doing this, was Little Mermaid. So when I first saw that in the theater, Little Mermaid, I was like, oh man, this is what I want to do. So, but going back to, like, how do I start? When I read a script, I'm already visualizing in my head, like, oh, this is kind of like, maybe this is kind of like this scene from here or whatever. There's, because scripts are written in a certain way where it is sort of it's visual, and so it kind of came naturally when you start boarding things out, and um, just how would I stage an over the shoulder shot? When is it important to stay on a close up on a character when they're saying their line, or when do you show, what kind of action are you showing? You would hope that the script has enough information that you're able to just go there and just sort of draw everything out. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's kind of vague, and you're like, you might talk to the writer, try to get more information from that person, or you just go with it. You just kind of just, like, you come up with your own thing and hopefully make that work. And sometimes that's even better, because writers will be like, oh, that's all I got. Not to say that, I'm sure that they get stuck like when they write a certain action scene or what, that there's probably that thing where, let's just try to rely on the storyboarders, see if they could try to tell that story. And it is like, you see that in movies and shows and TV shows too. But I would recommend, just, I mean, how much, and maybe I pose this question to you guys, like, do you guys watch a lot of movies, shows? Because that's, to me, is so important, because that's what you're creating. You're creating something, visual thing. And it's so important to have a little bit of that knowledge. And what better yet, you're watching movies, and you're watching TV shows and all these things that are like, we're so lucky to be even doing that. That's like our research, like I'm gonna go watch the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie and study that one.
Actually, you
Oh,
watched it yesterday.
Like it, by the way, 'cause I haven't seen it. I really want to see it, but the
Don't
second
spoil
one,
it to us, Xela. Don't.
don't spoil
don't
it.
you dare. Our listeners are listening right now. When
We
it
might
comes to
get the
like
bad end.
when it comes to like watching movies, actually we have a subject where it's dedicated to us watching movies and then having a chance to give our own reactions and insights into movies. Because one of the things that our prof before told us, it's called animation film. uh they told us that sometimes films are also like the best way to take inspiration for your works, which I
Mhm,
totally agree on. And then since the pandemic, after getting Netflix and recently Disney Plus, it's like, just fully dwelling into binge watching a lot of things, especially Disney. As a Disney kid, it
yeah.
it helped me a lot in my thesis when it comes to like compositioning, story, etc. And
Mhm.
actually, I wanna ask the two of you, guys here. Sela, you're also gonna be interviewed one way or another. I guess. Uh, what what do you think makes a good story, in both of your opinions? And I guess in addition to that, to you, Sir Julius, what makes a good storyboard?
Hmm,
So I guess we could start with Sela here.
go for it.
I feel like for me, if there's a level of rel- relatability to the story, like how you can make a show about fantasy characters that are um I don't know, like centaurs and whatever, and you're not exactly like them, but their personality and the way they work feels like you can relate to it. I think
Mm-hmm.
that makes a good story. Yes. I think yun talaga, like relatability. You have to relate to it somehow. Like how
Yeah.
the story of Mulan, I wasn't in that time. I wasn't in that ano period. Yeah. And I can still relate to it as a woman and as a child watching Mulan
Mm-hmm.
um fight for her family, her loved ones, like something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Like what it became, going back to Milan, what the essence of the story is the father-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
It's all about that,
Mm.
really, and that's what's to me what makes that movie so great. Is because that's the focus. You don't really focus on, this stuff and that. It's not like the. I'm sure you guys probably have seen the live action version. You see
Yeah.
how poorly executed that was.
Oh, there's a live
So
action.
sad.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I know it. When I first heard about that making the live action version, I was like, "Oh boy, okay, let's see what they do." Because Disney's been doing all these sort of remakes and you know, and they really haven't. They've lost all the essence of what the stories were all about. It becomes more of a visual kind of thing, and especially a movie like Mulan, which I was giving it like a lot of support. I was like, I hope this is good. I hope they, I end up crying at the end of the movie and this and that, and you know, but sometimes Disney being Disney, they have to kind of well, we gotta be just more authentic, which I get. Sure. I can't say Mulan is like 100% accurate.
Mm,
It's still a fantasy movie in a way, but
mm,
we're taking some of that cultural references and adding it in there. So it's not like we weren't like we weren't. uh it's like we weren't making everything up. I mean, we did have a talented, sort of a Chinese artists in there trying to make it more authentic and make it more real. Um, but but really the story is about the father, Mulan, and her relationship with her father, because it's all established in the beginning, and when she's, her dad's telling her, like, you gotta, because I guess back then, you gotta find you gotta be in your place. You can't be doing this and that. There's rules in a way, and so she ends up breaking those rules, in the hopes of just saving her father. And it becomes this, sort of this journey, with this character and all this stuff. So but yeah, I mean, that's character is so important, obviously. And if you could do it in your boards and really uh show it, and I think, obviously you're going to have a very successful, I mean, not just in general, like overall, sometimes story overall doesn't quite work, like the entire story. It's a tough process. It's, there's so many people involved, with doing these things. And, of course you have your directors, and then you have your sort of heads of like animation, heads of story, heads of layout, lighting, all this stuff now. So it's a team effort. And but really, if for the story to work, it is really that story team that is trying to piece together, and hope for a good story. Because sometimes, like, you could take this, like, you might tell somebody a sort of a particular story, and that doesn't sound that interesting. But if it's executed right from beginning, from point A to point B, it doesn't matter. It's like we follow that character, and we cared about that character or characters. And it, like my favorite movies are like animation. We're talking about just animation. Like, I love Miyazaki movies, most of them, not all of them.
There, yes.
Most of them, like Totoro
I'm
was
a
the
big
first, yeah, like Totoro was the first movie I've seen from him, and that blew me away because I'd never seen someone tell a story like that, and I cared so much for those little girls, and
yes.
it felt so real. You felt like, like, especially when is it Satsuki, feels for, like, she thinks her mom is going to die or something, like, it's so deep because it's like the little kid, it's like, it's such a real emotional thing that we can kind of relate to. So it's those kind of things, even like movies, nowadays, like movies like Spider-Verse, which I love, another great movie. You follow those characters and what, and Miles's character, his journey. I mean, those are, to me, are the important things. I don't even care how good the movie looks. That doesn't even matter to me. It's how you tell a story. And that's what I love about our job, is that that's what our focus is story. And yeah, you could have like the biggest companies creating some of the coolest animation and all that stuff, but if you don't have a story, whatever. But
Yeah.
you hope that people like us, here, a smart people, a smart artist, will appreciate that, as opposed to, like, I don't want to name names or productions because I'm just our circle's kind of
Oh,
small. I don't know
gee.
who's gonna listen to this. I'm sorry. I mean, like, I don't want to bad. Uh, I don't know, give someone a bad name, but I've seen some bad productions, and some people. It's always starts from the top, and it doesn't work. And some of the stuff I've worked on, some of them, like, again, I won't name names, but there have been some things that I've worked on, like, really, hard. It just becomes just a job. But it's a great job. It's a cool job to be part of. Be part of story, especially.
Well, regarding on that, I guess what makes a good storyboard?
Oh, yeah, I think that was probably the original question. Yeah, just clarity. Just clarity of your storyboards, and not being so overcomplicated, especially the way you move when a character, is moving through a frame. And really, the script is always the source. We've I mean, back then, I mean, sometimes, board artists, like the best board artists, obviously can just kind of come up with anything in their head, and they start just sort of boarding it out, right? If they're coming with an idea or whatever, that's, but it's all about just the clarity of your staging, all the staging, this, I mean, like we sometimes want it's like sort of simplified boards. You don't have to be again like too complex, in the way you stage something. Sometimes it's just require, like um, it depends on what's written in the script and how you want to stage it. You have to have many options on how to um, tell that story. But it's a tricky thing. It's again, it's not the easiest thing. And yeah, a lot of it comes from already like from um, like past works I've done, and going back and referencing a movie or something you've seen. That sort of helps. So, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, well, regarding on that, I think it will also be very helpful for us animation students since from
mhm,
what Sela introduced way before the start of the episode is that our thesis requires us to individually make our own short film animations.
mhm,
So, and one of the obstacles obviously is storyboarding, and one of the one of the many things that we worry about in storyboarding is like which parts do we like should we include in a storyboard, or like is this becoming too detailed or the likes, and what is like those questions like what makes a good storyboard. Are we actually doing a storyboard, or is this just doing low key illustrations now? So those types of advice I would assume would be very helpful for our listeners.
mhm,
And thesis wise, yeah, especially like the next part is we're gonna be producing our
right,
storyboards and actually making key animations for them.
mhm,
And to like hard segue to this question, because it feels like I'm gonna go on a ramble here. Since you made the shift from doing animated features to doing storyboard for series, what were the limits that we have to know when it comes to storyboarding TV shows?
what are the limits? Um, I don't know if I understand the question.
Um, I think Aaron is trying to put. Aaron is asking on, since you've had your experience with animated features, which are like the movies, but
Mhm,
now you are limited. Now you are doing storyboards for TV series like Firebuds right now,
mhm.
or at least with Elena of Avalor formerly. What were the limits that you're able to see, at least now that you're working with with a serial production
Mhm.
rather than something like a feature?
Oh, it all becomes with the budget of a show, because obviously, like the like Disney animation, they could go crazy, because they have money. They could be more. They could push things more. Obviously, a show like mine's because we have a limited budget, and it's higher than most shows anyway too. So we have opportunities to like be creative and push some things, but because we are sort of contracted with this other animation studio. We work with this company called Icon Creative Studio, which is located in Vancouver, and they do all the animation, all the modeling, all the stuff. The On our end, it's just basically production, storyboard artists, designers, all the talented designers that we have. We don't really necessarily have any animators. Um, on our end, because it's a CG show, and it's more cost efficient. Obviously you've probably heard like we do oversee stuff. We oversee all that other hard work comes later and done in a in another studio outside of the United States, because again it's just cheaper.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we're obviously that's where we're limited. Like say for instance, like we're only required to have like 10 new props in one episode, but we go over that because we need it for story. Like we need this hammer. We need this. So what do we have instead of a hammer that we could use? And then we have to sometimes compromise. Drives me crazy sometimes. Like, really, we can't just create that? No one can just create a hammer, you know. Um, so that's just an example. And like our show, which is like it's a lot of fire and rescue stuff, so there's going to require a lot of things like tools, gadgets, props and stuff. So the writers have to be certain that whatever they write has that many props. And so and it's our jobs when as a board artist, to go in there and just basically take what they have. But and trying not to be, and try to be careful of not wanting to add something. It's like, boy, it'd be great if we could add like a handkerchief here or something, a towel. That's something as simple as that. But that would also mean, though, for production, that we have to build that towel. It's not part of our prop count. And then it's like, oh, well, what can we do? Well, we have a napkin. Can we use a napkin? We built that. So it's this weird. It's things like that. I'm just giving you kind of a small, sort of a sense of how that works. Over in like feature animation, not just Disney, but like Sony and like DreamWorks and all those other companies, those big companies, yeah, they got money. Go ahead, build. How many hammers do you want? How many styles of hammers do you need? So they go in there, they build it, and that's just their thing. It's they're able to afford to do it because they have to hire someone to do it, and plus we have limited time. Time is probably the biggest thing, the biggest difference, with features and TV, because we're set. We have to stay within the schedule, and if anything falls behind or if anything is like, what happened here in the sequence? Why are we requiring to change this and that? That's going to screw up a lot of things. And so we have to do our best to sort of, come up with a solution for that, to fix it, or try to keep that idea, those are some of the challenges of doing this kind of work, especially on my end. So I guess what was the question again? Sorry, I don't know if I was answering it.
I think it
Um,
was right.
yeah,
You're
I think
able
you
to
did
answer
answer.
the yeah, you're able to answer the questions like what were the limits? So it is time and resources. But I have an additional question. Is there a moment, is there a part in serial production where competition adds into the mix? Like now that I've learned about Firebuds, this puts it in a competition with another network series, and
Oh,
it's
Paw Patrol.
well, yeah. I was wondering like
Paw
Oh, we're talking
I
Patrol.
was
about
wondering like with Paw
talking about
Patrol.
that.
I was like wondering with Paw Patrol, and Paw Patrol is one of Nickelodeon's bigger assets as well.
Yeah, it's a money
And
for sure.
it's a moneymaker. Yeah, they already have their own movie with Paramount Animation, and I'm surprised that even something like a Nick Jr. franchise like Paw Patrol was able to make it to the big guns. I was like wondering, how are
Uh,
you guys able to compete with something like Paw Patrol? What
well,
kind of distinctions do you guys have to make creatively, or at least in some ways with how, or some ways in the production pipeline that could like help you become much more recognizable, or maybe
yeah,
much more
I
distinct?
understand your question. It's a good question. Yeah, we obviously know that other show exists, and I think my show creator, who's like one of the smartest guys. His name is Craig Gerber, who I've worked with also on Elena of Avalar. He also created Elena of Avalar, and he also created Sophia the First. I don't know if you ever watched Sophia the First.
Oh,
Oh,
My
yes.
that
favorite
one is a
Yes,
big
show.
I
hitter.
did.
That
Binge
was
So,
a
watch
big hitter for
twice.
Disney Junior too.
oh, big! That was huge for Disney TV at the time, or Disney period. And Craig created that show. So so with Firebud, and he's a smart guy. He pitches a lot of ideas and stuff, and been able to like have at least these two hits, like Elena and Sophia. But he understands that. He understands the marketing and what it is to keep a show alive, because of it all becomes down to the toys, all the consumer products and stuff. And that's why Paw Patrol is so successful, because it sells. It sells. It may not be the greatest stories, but it's like, or even the most aesthetically looking beautiful show, but it makes money. It makes money for the company. So That's the bottom line. And because you could do an artsy kind of show, like Disney animation is a perfect example too, because you, again, with a show like that or with their movies, again, you're selling something. They go in there with knowing that they have to sell something. So, because it is what it is, it's Disney. Yeah, you could be artistic and have a deep meaning story, and all this. But when it comes down to it, you want to make something that's entertaining, something that the characters can, audience can relate to and feel for and cheer and all that stuff. And the toys follows after that.
Yeah.
Lion King is the perfect example of that. Gosh, it was perfect because, like, why not have a plushy Simba or Rafiki? All these little toys. I ate up all that stuff when that movie came out because I love it so much. I said I have to have like a Timon plushie or something. Pumbaa. All
Oh,
those
me
things.
to my parents.
Oh, your parents. Darn.
And that's what we're trying to do with our show, because our toys, we've slowly released a few things, some toys on for Firebuds, but we haven't really released everything yet. But trust me, they're going to come out soon, and we're hoping that's going to elevate the show even more because
I'm buying them all.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like, look. I don't know if you saw this in one of our episodes from first season, is that we actually have a jeepney. I'm like, I want that jeepney toy. I hope they make it. Can you imagine a Disney toy that's a jeepney? That'd be crazy. I would love to see that. And and Bobayani, who's he's half Filipino, but still though, it's like, well, you could make an action figure out of him. That'd be so cool because it's a Filipino character, and his dad, who's Filipino. I would get a total like a Chief Bill toy just because like he's a Filipino character. I think it's so cool to have that. So money is obviously an important thing, and if it makes money, it generates money, great. Because you're going to have followers, people who kids who want to watch the show. And I've heard like people telling me like oh, my kids have been watching Firebuds, they love the show, blah blah blah. But but I understand like there's other popular shows like Paw Patrol, and if you're just talking like Disney Junior in general, like the top, the most popular Disney Junior show is right now, right? Do you guys have any idea what the most popular Disney Junior show is right now?
uh,
I
my guess
haven't
is must be the
known which
first, but I'm
one.
not sure if that's the
No,
correct
that thing
one.
ended already. I think it's Mickey's show. I feel it's Mickey's show because
Uh,
because here in the Philippines, actually, Disney Junior and all of the other Disney channels are
yeah.
actually already disabled in turn for Disney Plus. So
Uh-huh.
I have no idea what actually that all ended last year or 2021 as I remember. So I'm not really sure what was the big hitter for Disney Junior right now.
Mhm.
So
It's I'll tell you what the show is. It's a show called Bluey. Yeah.
oh
Oh,
Wait, Bluey.
oh
Oh my
that was
gosh.
a Disney production.
It
Phew.
wasn't necessarily a Disney production, even though Disney distributed it,
Oh, okay.
And,
It's
yeah, it's like done in
mm,
I want to say Australia, I think, or somewhere out
yeah.
there. You could probably hear an accent, right? And if you look at the credits, you'll see where it's done. Um, that's a hit. That's a huge hit for Disney, Bluey, and I personally actually like the show because I've seen some of the episodes and I'm like, wow, this is such a charming, super cute show. And it's short. It's not like, I mean, our
Like
episodes
it's
are
easy to
11,
digest.
huh?
Like it's easy to digest.
It's
Like it's
easy to digest, it's charming, and it's funny. And it seems like even adults can appreciate it, like parents can appreciate it. So there's something about the show, even though it's so funny with that show because they do so, not so many, but they do sort of irreverent things. Like it would never get past network. It's like, wow, they're actually going to do that? It's in there. We have to go through network and be like, they can't fall that hard. They can't like, they can't get hurt. They can't do this and that. Even though it's a fire and rescue show, right? So there's going to be danger involved. They can't be that high. They have to wear a helmet. They there has to be a net underneath these guys. We have to show that these kids are protected. uh, but it's the challenge that our writers have when we do this, and board artists, because like we'll have to stage these things in a ways where it looks like it's perilous. It's like they are in danger in some ways, but we can't make it so much like someone's on fire. We have to like that's I mean, imagine like someone on fire on a Disney show. It's funny, but
Uh,
it's you
it
can't do
sounds risky.
it. No. They catch those things because like the thing is that our viewers are younger. They're like they range from like 2 to maybe 7, at the most, the highest. But these are kids, and but we're still trying to tell these enriched stories, and trying to like expose our culture in there too, especially with the Filipino stuff. But it always goes down to the character, just the storytelling. That's what they focus on. You guys should interview my story editor. Story editor is the person who sort of is the head writer, or the main sort of staff writer. We have a staff of writers, but you have like the sort of the not the boss, but like someone who heads the writing team. And her name is Crystal, she's Filipino, so she's like, she oversees a lot of the scripts and stuff. I mean, my boss is the one Craig Gerber is the one who oversees the scripts, but she's sort of in charge of like, with the writing team. And also she's sort of co-story editor with the guy too. His name is Jeremy. So they're both story editors on the show, but it's great that she's, there to sort of help with like some of the Filipino stuff, that we're trying to tell in our stories. But I don't know if I was leading into something with the writing. But yeah, going back to Bluey, definitely like a very popular, awesome show. I feel like, but to get that success though is like, again, it has to appeal not just to the kids but to adults also, and it's a tough thing to sell, because I mean, I don't think our stories are great. They have a good message. I feel like they should be entertaining for the kids, for sure, and enough humor to make adults kind of get it. But we are kind of limited sometimes. Like we obviously can't do fart jokes, any
Huh.
any kind of like Warner Brothers kind of. I mean, we love like Warner Brothers stuff, like Looney Tunes, like Tex Avery. I grew up with Tex Avery, like those droopy cartoons, Tom and Jerry.
Oh.
Love those. Those are my favorite things growing up. And I think also I tried my best to add some of that in there, like a little bit of that sort of humor. You can't do it because it's like it might look violent. It might look like
Yeah.
we don't want characters to get hurt, but we want to have fun with it too. So, yeah. So there.
I guess like regarding that too, I also like wanna ask Stella something because regarding the thesis and then the storyboarding, what were the difficulties that you have encountered when doing storyboarding? Okay, first thing first, what's your story for your thesis and what were the difficulties in
Oh.
it?
Ow.
We're gonna live critique your thesis
Okay.
right now.
So my story is about the theme of my story is about unacknowledged rape in college students. So that's the theme. And then my story revolves around a college student named Tion who discovers that he was raped by his boyfriend from this duct that is shown as his subconscious. Something like that. So in the process of my storyboarding, I think what I was really having trouble with is I didn't have a larger visual what's the
Motive?
word? Visual
Concept
Motif?
idea.
visual
Oh,
gallery folder in my brain. Something like that.
ah.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of ano some
Like like reference, like
Yeah, reference.
yeah.
Because a lot of the story revolves around him being in this dream state. So it has a lot of transitions and then a lot of um, open space that's not really open space, something like that. And
Yep.
writing my story, I kind of had like an idea of it, but I didn't know how to translate it into a storyboard since my skill isn't that up to par yet with my imagination and
A
stuff.
very heavy subject, first off. I mean, like I commend you for doing something like that story. It's great. Uh, but you know, obviously when we board, we use a lot of reference. We have to have reference. You know, we can't just it just comes out of our head. No,
Yeah.
not at all. You have to build your world first. And then I think that's the most important thing, you know. I mean, like we talk about story, that's one specific thing. But you know, if we're talking about just an animation thing, just one overall thing, first off, just you have your concept. Second, like you start building the world, you just build all your references, your models. That's what we call visual development, because that's all the stuff that you're going to later on need when you start to storyboard, you know, your thing. Because storyboard comes a little later. You have to be able to build the world first. Like what does the school look like? What is this dreamlike thing that you're thinking about? Who is the character? What does the character look like first? You know, you make sure to establish all that before you even attempt to even storyboard it. Because if you're just going in there and storyboarding and thinking that you already know it, you're gonna get stuck, you know. And so build the world first, build everything first. Try to, you know, maybe there was a movie or a show that maybe you think of that goes, oh, that would be an interesting visual style for this, you know. So it's important to have all that reference before you even go into, like, you know, the thing. Look at like art books. Like the thing that I keep buying, no, I kind of slowed down. Like the art of books, like all of the art of like Moana, art of, you know, Spider-Verse. You know, I love looking at that stuff because it inspires me. And you might find some cool visual reference, you know, from it that you go, oh, that's what I was looking for. That's what I need. And then you sort of do your best as to do your own translation of that. So it's, you know, it's hard to just sort of all of a sudden just start swimming across the Atlantic, you know. But you got to train first. You got to make sure you build all those muscles before you can actually just do it, you know, right? So it's the same thing
Yeah.
with animation. You got to make sure you have everything before you even go attack. Because storyboarding is a process. It's hard. It is the hardest position in animation, in my opinion, because I mean, animation is great. You know, that's tedious. It's time consuming. It takes a lot of time. But I think you can get it just by, like, you know how people kind of record themselves, they act and all that. You know, they do that kind of thing. With storyboarding, like, you have to have good film sense, good cinematic film sense. And I know I say cinematic, I'm being more specific about like how how I've boarded, because like a lot of the shows that I've worked on have been mostly, well, lately mostly CG stuff. So it feels like it's like almost doing like a live action thing. But there's other great shows that have like just more 2D stuff, 2D flat kind of staging. If you like that kind of style, then go for that style. That's, you know, it might even be easier just because you don't have to focus too much on um, perspective, you know, all the basic stuff that sometimes you learn when you're learning how to draw and all that. But there have been some successful shows, you know, where it's just flat. Look at South Park. You know, I love South Park,
Yeah.
and it's nuts. It's like a crazy show, but you see how they're able to execute their stories just by these simple cutout looking drawings and silliness and stuff. So again, it's just, again, making sure you understand your world first, and then go into it, and then you go, okay, now I know my character. I know this is going to happen here and stuff. And granted, you guys are doing student film, so this is from you. Like, so no one's writing you a script, and here you go, storyboard it. You know, you only have 6 weeks
Yeah.
to do it. No, this is, you have the freedom. This is like your baby. So whatever you guys end up creating is going to be from the heart, from you. So, but again, it all starts from just building it. You have to build everything first before you can actually, you know, cross the Atlantic, metaphorically.
Actually, do you think that using 3D programs like Blender for creating the environment would greatly help help
Yeah,
you in storyboarding?
yeah. I mean, we've used like SketchUp and
Oh, darn SketchUp.
yeah. I mean, people have done that. You know, I mean, it's for people who people can't do background stuff. They can't draw perspective, so they have to use SketchUp, which is I
I feel
understand
so called out.
I understand that because like I love drawing backgrounds too, but it's hard. Like you need the right, sort of thing. Blender, I mean, I've never used Blender before. I've used SketchUp. I never built anything on SketchUp, but I've used it for backgrounds, just because like sometimes something gets complicated. When I was on Elena of Avalar, we had a castle, and so we'd have
Oh
someone build
yeah, that castles
castle, like
thing.
we'd someone build the actual castle, like sketch, not I mean as close as possible to the actual model, but enough that we could use it for storyboards, right? If we need to see the castle in the background, or we need a certain angle, we're looking at a down shot, Elena's flying on her jacqueline flying up, and we need this certain angle, stuff like that. It's good to use if you know how to use it.
Okay, one more question. So one of the things that I was having trouble with is that there was this um line my teacher said to me that every shot that you should make should have like a meaning or should have some sort of purpose to the
Yeah.
story, and I'm really having trouble with that because like what if I just want to make I don't know, a close up of this thing
Yeah.
or something like that.
Choosing the right shot. Again, this is why it's so difficult to do boards, because like you want to choose the right shot. You know, here's the thing. I'll give you an example of something that I had to, is a good sense of how to tell a story. Like one of my first assignments when I got the job at Disney, we had to take a test. Basically, there's a test that we take, and the test was basically an old lady is crossing a street and something happens in the on her way there, and that's it. That was the test.
Huh.
And so in order and then to be hired, obviously, so who does it in the most clever way, right? So obviously, you gotta have your story always has a beginning, middle, and end, right? A beginning, middle, and end. So it's when you're doing your boards, and again, it depends on your style, depends on how you see it. Yes, it's good to follow certain, rules. There are rules, of course, but it's always great sometimes when you can break them. But it has to make sense. It has to have good reason for it. But when you're talking about shots, and like going back to the old lady crossing the street thing, I went for my own thing. Like I was trying to make something kind of cinematic, like trying to choose angles and this and that. It's not easy because such a general thing. You give it to any artist, everyone's going to do a different interpretation of that test, right? So there's nothing I could say to say do it this way. This is how you're supposed to do it. You kind of have to just go with it and see what you come up with. Yes, there's so much reference, that you could use to help you tell your story. And every story doesn't have to have a meaning or storyboard. I'm talking about every panel, but it is great if it's like if you're, if there's a reason why you chose the down shot over an upshot or over like this particular shot, great. If you're doing a more of a POV, a point of view kind of shot, there has to be a reason for that. And even choosing a wide shot. Like when do you go to a wide shot? You go to a wide shot, probably because you want to see the culmination of something. Like it all happens in that one big shot because you need to go wide. Sometimes you go on a tight shot, a reaction shot, because you want a reaction, from the character. It really depends on the story and how it progresses. So, and make sure like it's written well. I mean, are you guys required to also write your scripts? Do you write scripts?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
for sure, definitely. I mean, like we're all not writers too, right? So it's like you guys want to do boards. It's funny, but it is you do want to understand the writing process as well, because again, I mean, I work with scripts, obviously. I don't write them, but I look at them and try to understand them. Like you see, establish your shot. You're out on the beach. And then you have your sort of description of what's happening in dialogue. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I answered your question, but it's
It did. You did answer
process.
my
It's definitely a
question.
process. Build your world.
Well, I
Oh,
think that.
yeah.
Oh,
No,
yes.
no, yeah.
No. Well, I think we could all agree, like, as much as we wanna go
Sorry.
more into this conversation,
Yeah.
as all good things must come to an end, and unfortunately, we might we might be overextending this way too much.
I
Yeah,
could
we
go
So
might
on. You guys want to
overextend.
keep talking? I'll keep talking.
yeah, well, the problem here is ripped to our editor. Yeah.
But
Well,
I guess before we close things off, I suppose, Jules, do you have any advice of sorts for all of us
yes.
here or to all of our listeners that wanted to at least build their worlds in a sense or take in or try to at least go for the big time when it comes to storyboarding? What would you tell these storyteller listeners of ours?
I don't know. Everyone's kind of different, I would say, because you have creators, like people who want to create their own brand, right? And God bless them, like go for it. We have a lot of there's so many talented people in the business. I'm sure you guys are extremely talented. I would love to see you guys' work too, especially, and please feel free to email me and share your work, because I will take a look at it and give you my advice, because I don't, I'm very pro uh like just encouraging young people. I have a daughter who's like 12, and she loves to draw. I didn't make her draw. She found that on her own. But but the thing is I'm doing with her is that I am exposing her to movies and stuff too. So I want her to see, if because she loves it, and we all love it. We love watching it together. So first of all, find your passion. What is your passion? And who are your influences? Like to me, it was Steven Spielberg. Watching those movies and stuff, and it became about movies. And then I learned about like Quentin Tarantino. I learned about David Fincher. All these amazing filmmakers, and seeing their works. And then I learned about animation people like Miyazaki, even Walt Disney himself. Even though Walt Disney wasn't like the artist, but I knew the artist who worked on those things, and studying those guys. I had the greatest pleasure of having Chris Sanders as my mentor. And if you know Chris, he's the guy who created Lilo and Stitch. He was also
Oh,
my boss, on Mulan. So, he was our story supervisor on that. So I knew where he was coming from, and I emulate a lot of my stuff from him, just because his stuff is amazing. I love his work, and I could always like brag that, man, yeah, I worked with him. This guy, we used to hang out and stuff. So, but he's an amazing talent. And then, like, of course, following other artists. I was a big my most recent ones are kind of like who sadly passed away, like Kim Jung-gi, like the Korean illustrator.
Yeah.
Loved him, like his stuff. And sadly he passed away. But just but I loved his work because of the way he made it look like easy. He made it look easy, and so that tries to instill in me like you got to be better than that. You got to be as good. You probably never get that, but you want to strive for the best, you know. And to go with that mentality, you're here for a reason. You want to be like Michael Jordan, like Kobe Bryant. Like you always have to go with that mindset of like, I'm that good. I want to be that good. And what does it take? It takes practice. It's a lot of practice. Um, and so even down to like just drawing a basic human figure, just to try to perfect that, try to be as good as that. That's easy to draw like a person, a character in a particular pose, or any kind of object, an animal, like an animal character. Try your, study a dog. Just sit there drawing a dog, and then that way when it gets down to actually, you know, working, like if you were to work on for a company that ends up having a dog character, you'll know already how to draw a dog, and all this stuff. It's all these things that you got to train yourself for. And I did it. It took long time, and it took this 30-year career to finally feel like, I think I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there. Like I still don't feel like I'm, I think I could pass. I pass like, sort of the typical kind of work that we do, but to be like the best, to be a Chris Sanders, to be, someone even that as good as that, you have to keep perfecting it, trying to do that work, and it's a lot of focus. Um, so obviously being disciplined and practicing, and you know, I would say just keep your mind on that. Um, and then when you get that job, for whatever company or studio you work for, you'll be prepared, and it'll be easy. So I don't know. And it does take time experience. And the more experience you have, the easier it gets. And not all experiences are going to be 100%. They're all not going to be the greatest. You'll have your good ones, and then you'll have your like, boy, this one really sucks. uh, but again, if you love the business, if you love animation, you're going to keep doing it. You're going to keep doing it until you are done holding a stylus or a pencil.
Inspiring.
That-
That's
Thank you
really
so much.
inspirational.
Oh, now
Speechless.
oh,
Really?
I guess I'm gonna keep on drawing. That's the
Yeah.
life
Well,
goal.
I wanted to ask a question because I barely know you guys. So
Oh,
you
go
guys are
go
all
ahead. I'm
No,
ready.
go ahead.
you guys are students, obviously, right? And what is the
Yes.
school that you're going to, or what academy, or where are you studying?
The La Salle College of Saint
Been
Benilde.
Benilde.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you all know each other, obviously, right?
Oh yeah.
We're
Yes.
all from the same part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We
I guess
we actually do pride our school being the pioneering institution for animation in the Philippines, to be
awesome.
honest.
Okay, that's great.
And we actually, yeah, I'm really glad that Benilde is pushing these boundaries for Filipino animation just to make sure that all not only suppose the Filipino creatives, I guess they're trying to push the arts industry in general of the the Filipino art industry forward, and it is already evident with the things that with the programs they're offering right now, the amount of expertise that they bring in. You could almost say that they're like the Cal Arts of the Philippines.
Uh,
Yeah, they're really like the Cal Arts of
oh.
the Philippines, to be honest.
Yeah.
And although the animation program is somehow young in Benilde
mhm.
and with the other competing institutions, I'd say that maybe once the alum that have matured there start to flourish around, maybe we might see that Benilde is striking out to be one of the big institutions out there, providing that good Filipino talent that not only should showcase that will not only try to impress those
Mhm.
here in the Philippines, but of course impress the world beyond. That's part of the slogan in Benilde, of course.
Yes, and since our org is the academic org for animation, our main job is to make sure that our org mates will be fully equipped for entering the animation industry. Hence why the other reason why we also want to invite professionals to also give their like wisdom
Their
on it, and
insights.
also invite our own members so that they'll have a chance to interact with you. Like here's like Xela right here. And hello, I'm Aaron Chokyo, the president of the said org.
No, this is wonderful to hear because you mentioned somebody that I actually know. You mentioned Lou de Carmen. You know,
Yep.
he's
He
actually a
was
friend.
one of our first guests.
Yeah.
Well, he was one of the first guests that we have invited earlier in the school year just to
Mhm.
give us an insight on how he does his storyboard
Super
style.
talented guy. Yeah.
He did that for our first webinar in storyboarding, the Framey Bunch. Him and Sir Ian Avando. So we really give our full-hearted kudos to them for being able to respond at the time. But now you are also here. We are very pleased and we're very honored to have you as our guest
Yeah.
for this podcast.
Oh no,
And we
it's
do.
been a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me for sure. I'm telling you, we there's a lot of talented Filipinos in here in LA. I mean, in America, of course, in our business. So many of you, I could definitely introduce you to. I mean, I'll name them right off the bat. There's the Jeff Ranjos, there's the Bobby Rubios, there's Ronnie Del Carmen, Ruben Aquino. And if you've heard of Ruben Aquino, he's not full Filipino, but he's half Filipino. He's the guy who animated Ursula, like Little Mermaid.
Oh.
He is like, I mean, he's retired now. I mean, I think he's still working. Again, I could, I'm lucky enough to call him as a friend because he animated Shang in Mulan. He animated Simba
Oh,
in Lion King. He's definitely like a legend. He's a legend in our business. We know, like us guys, like we bow to Ruben. He's our. But
Albert
but I've been
Chinatown.
yeah, for sure. But he's, like again, there's so many of it. It's amazing. I've been so fortunate to discover these all these wonderful artists. On my show on Firebuzz, I have one Filipino board artist, who you could probably reach out to also. Her name is Renee oh God, what's her last name? Renee Camille, which, if you need any information on these people, I could forward it to you for sure. She'd be willing to talk to you guys. uh they're talented again, like in Crystal Bonzon, who's our story editor on Firebuds. God, I know I'm missing some people, but trust me, we have a visual development artist, a guy who does backgrounds and layouts, who's straight from the Philippines. His name is Troylan Caro. We got some Pinoy people here. Yeah, we got some Filipino Americans, sure, like myself. I was born in the Philippines, by the way, if you know that. I was born in San Felipe, you know, uh, over there by just north of Olongapo. So,
cool.
I consider
Oh
myself
boy.
Filipino, but I only lived there for a year. And I came to this. My father came, moved us to the States, So I've been living in like San Diego / LA for like most of my life. So I'm a Southern California guy. Uh, but yeah,
You
I mean,
know, the Pinoy blood still runs.
yeah, there's so many great. Bobby Pontius is another guy you should look up. Bobby's super.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually,
Darn, I didn't catch that message.
he had a lot of talks in I Academy when I was studying there, and I
Mhm.
had the chance to meet him there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was really great.
yeah.
Such a good person and artist.
No,
Darn.
he's great. He's a fantastic. I think he used to animate also, but does a lot of character designs, and stuff. There's like we have one Filipino woman who's over at Disney Animation directing on the next feature movie. So she's developing something. Also, her name is oh my god, it's gonna slip my mind. I'm so terrible. I hope nobody there hears about this because it's gonna be so sad. Uh,
Director of the next feature film. Would
no, no,
this
no.
feature film
Oh
happen to be a
god, what is her
sequel?
name? It's just my memory is so bad. Uh,
Well,
Josie Trinidad.
darn.
Yeah,
Ah, what a coincidence.
there
Oh
you go.
darn. But
Yeah,
yeah. Well,
she's also
well, okay, thank you so much for that, and I do hope that I get to be in contact with a number of those with our Filipino kin in in the Americas of discussing us and at least fulfilling us with their wisdom of their expertise as well in animation. And I do hope that one day we get to least have the chance to talk to them. But you are one we are very lucky to have you to discuss and at least and casually engage with us and give us your insights on your expertise in storyboarding. So we thank you this much, Jules. We thank you a lot.
Oh, thank you. I
Thank
mean,
you for
sure.
Yes,
thank you for joining
exactly.
our podcast. And so,
This is my first
oh yeah.
podcast, by the way, so I don't think I've ever done something
Oh,
like this. So
Oh, I hope this is a memorable experience for you then.
I don't know what to expect from this, honestly.
Oh, we'll be
I hope,
informing you when the
I
episode
hope no
comes
one really
out.
comes back to me. Did you say that, Jules? I heard this from this, so now it's like, can't backtrack what I said.
I guess before we fully end this, are there any things you both of you want to plug? Your
yeah.
socials, any
You happen
works,
to have any
etc.
works or socials that you guys want to plug?
Go first,
Maybe.
Scylla.
um, so my Instagram is at XCLAH. It's the same in my Twitter also. And those are the only two social media I use, honestly. So you can follow me there. That's all. Yeah, follow me so I have more followers. Even though I don't post that much.
You're pushing that much. Let's go.
Well,
What about
I mean, I
you?
do the social media team too, but not as I've been terrible with my social media.
Yeah, I
I'm
feel
so bad.
you.
I was so into it for a while, like during the pandemic and stuff, but now I've like, because this directing job has kind of kept my, it could be pretty busy, and who has time to create content? It's like it's a whole, you know, sacrifice. But I do love to do stuff on the side, and I always have to be careful what I post too. So it's like, I mean,
Oh,
especially when I was working on Firebug. When I was working on Firebuds, like early on, I was like, I can't really post any Bo Bayani stuff yet, So, but I do have like stuff like that should post. But you can follow me on Art of Jules, on Instagram. That's my main one. I do have a Tumblr as well. You could probably find me there. I think it's also Art of Jules. Which is cool to get that name, because like, wow, I actually got Art of Jules, it's like, I was sort of proud of that. And yeah, watch Firebuds, please. We need more follow. We need more viewers. Keep the show going. And because I think this is a chance. I mean, we are definitely trying to showcase some of the Filipino stuff in there. I want to say what we're doing, but I can't, because we're still in. A lot of like some of it's like we can't just talk about. But obviously, first season's out, so there's a whole lumpia episode that we did.
Oh.
Most of the Filipino stuff I've worked on it. I directed those. So I actually had to go in there and watch reference and how people roll up the lumpia,
Yes,
So
Lumpia represent.
so I did
Lumpia
that.
is my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, of course I have to represent. And Crystal and I, work together on this. We're trying our best. And my showrunner, Craig Gerber, who's been such an awesome, to hire me on, and this is my first directing job. So what better way to have like Filipino things in it, and to be a director on a show, my first show. It's like being on Mulan. Like, wow, I get to be on a movie and it has Asian people in it, and it's a movie. It's just the same sort of feeling, and I'm just so proud of it. It's like it's great. Yeah, I mean, someday a Filipino movie will be made. I promise
Yes.
you, it will be a film, an actual movie will be made. If Disney does it, Sony, whoever does it, if someone else who has the money, the big bucks to pull it out to go, I hope to be a part of that. I would love to be a part of that.
guess it's now. I guess it's time for Pete Doctor to bring in the budget for next year.
Well, I don't
Hopefully
know.
he does it.
Pixar doing it, sure, why not? I mean, there's so many talent. Like, I guarantee, like people like the Ronnie Del Carmen's and the Bobby Rubios, Jeff Ranjos, that who I'm just fortunate enough to call my friends. We're trying. We are trying. We want to make Filipino content, and because there's so many talented, amazing artists and actors and everything. I just discovered one last night. I was watching this movie called the Triangle of Sadness.
Oh, Dolly. Dolly the
Is she? Do you guys know her, who she is, or is she from?
yeah.
I haven't watched the movie yet.
She's actually notable here, but in a smaller sense because she often takes the indie film genres.
Mm-hmm.
But when she's abroad, she has these very strong roles, and Triangles of Sadness is one of her big break moments as well, from what I remember.
Oh,
So
she's fantastic in that. Man, I mean, it was a good film overall. It was kind of long, but it was like it was a really interesting movie. But I heard about her performance, and like, because I had colleagues, who are like, oh, hey, "Have you guys seen this movie, Triangle of Sadness?" And I seen the trailer. I go, "No, not yet." So you should see it. There's a Filipino character that you might be interested in checking out. And I go, "Okay." And she blew me away. I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! That's so cool." And I love discovering, and it was so interesting too. Is like in my show, I'm trying so hard to like get Filipino talent to come on board, like especially voices. Voices are hard because, like, man, this is a whole nother topic, by the way. It might keep you here for another half hour, but I'll share something that's really interesting. Like right now it's Lou Diamond Phillips who does the voice for Dad. He's Filipino, but he's more American, right? So, and the main kid, Bobayan, I mean, he's not Filipino. He kind of looks Filipino, but he actually looks more mixed. But he's doing a great job, and we've had to try to really help him out on certain words, that he has to speak that are like in Tagalog. But we have other great talent, like voice people, like this one actress. Her name is Dee Dee, who did the voice for the mom, for Bo's mom, Lola Belen. And man, I mean, like, why can't we write a whole episode about her? Because her voice is so freaking, and she's so good. And she was so when I introduced ourselves to the show and to myself, like, she was so proud, like, "Oh my God, you guys are doing Filipino stuff. You're saying like words like anak, you're saying, you got lumpia in it." I was able to go like I threw in one thing that I had to be was so Filipino. It's in the lumpia episode where Lolo Belen, they're in a hurry to go find like this missing lumpia, right? So he comes down this fire pole. He's got a friend, like a partner who's like a vehicle, right? We have talking vehicles. It's like Pixar cars. So he's like he calls out to his buddy. He jumps down and he turns and goes, "Hoi!" You know, I threw it there. I had to throw
Filipino
it there
sayings.
because, like, when am I ever going to do that in a movie or a show? So we actually did it, animated it, and everything. So it's there. It exists. So there's stuff like that I'm trying to throw in little like Filipino things, and hopefully we'll see more of it. Because I think we're sort of like, I say we're poorly represented here in America. And America's tough. And if it's in the Philippines, fantastic. You guys are, Philippines. And I'm waiting for that big thing to come out of there, the Philippines. And I've seen some really good stuff, but not enough. It's like, come on, we want to catch up to our Latino, community too. We want to catch up to our African, our Black community too. We want to catch up. We're there too. Like, Filipinos have been a part of America for a long time, and I think it's about
Yes.
we share our voice. So it's getting there. I feel like it's getting there. Better than it was 30 years ago, when I started.
Yeah.
for sure.
Wait until we graduate. Joke.
I hope you guys make it. I really am hoping. I really want you guys. I've met some other great, talented young Filipino artists too, and they're doing their thing. So I hope I see more.
Well, thank you for like that very insightful, inspiring message. And
You
for
can
sure,
have me
like,
over too. I do want to go to the school and visit you guys.
oh,
Absolutely.
if
Whenever.
you
Yes.
do, tell us. We're
I
Oh
willing
hope
to
so.
like
yeah.
tour you around.
Yeah, I would love to visit the campus for sure.
We'd love to introduce to you the people from Benil. And we hope
Yeah.
you enjoy your visit
Are you
to
in
there.
Manila? What part of town are you at again?
Oh yeah, it's in Manila.
Mm-mm.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's in Manila. Well,
So easy access from the airport.
Yep.
Great.
Overall, again, thank you for coming to our episode, the two of you. Like, we really appreciate the fact that you guys allotted your time for
Yeah.
this. And again, as all good things must come to an end. And today, this is the end for this episode. So, for all of you guys, if you love us, go ahead and share, like, spread this podcast to your friends. If you don't, it's okay. We still love you. But isn't it better if both of our feelings are mutual? Right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
again, this is Nemo's Corner. And remember, the
The
more,
more
the
the merrier.
merrier.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Okay.